Hello. Welcome. It's another day, another stream in fascist America. The United States of America, that is. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. I'm Aubri Devashrayee. Alright. I've been a little more consistent with some of these notifications on going live, celebrating the small wins, continuing to do so. It is Banned Book Club today, so we're going to be talking about The Bluest Eye, an incredible book by the genius Toni Morrison. I think one of the world's greatest artists. Truly. There are a few things that I wanted to show with perspectives on The Bluest Eye, hearing from Toni Morrison herself, as well as providing some background for this particular section that we are reading, which was page 44 to 50. Again, we're going slowly with this book because I think it is necessary in order to actually digest what is being given to us through the wisdom of Toni Morrison, that we need to sit with these things. So we'll be going over that. We'll continue to read Othello. There's a little bit of history that I wanted to continue with for Othello, particularly the actor Ira Aldridge, and get into Act 2. But before that, I don't have a humorous video today, just that we can get going with things. I did want to highlight some local news. So there is an increase in the ICE raids that have been happening. It's not like they have stopped. They haven't gone anywhere. They've been happening, to be clear. Terrorizing people, doesn't matter what sort of documentation status people have, like whatever the fuck that even means, because no one is illegal on stolen land, and that people are being racially profiled, that queer people as well, especially trans people, gender nonconforming people, gender expansive people, non-binary people, are also being targeted. This is something that has been happening, like I said before. So we have seen an increase in what is going on, especially when it comes to local police involvement. And this is reprehensible. It always has been. It continues to be. But we are seeing a surge in this happening. And we need to be outspoken against these Gestapo tactics. There are also a number of warehouses that are being bought up by the government and the state in order to be made into concentration camps to kidnap, traffic, and hold people, imprison people in these places in horrendous conditions. So we need to be resisting all of this. I did want to talk about one particular situation and a way that people can be giving back. So I'll share my screen here. Julio, who has been very involved in speaking out against all of this overt fascism, especially with the targeting of immigrants, especially immigrants of color. And it is not an accident that he has been targeted specifically, because he has been front-facing, a leader with resisting all of this bullshit, and he has been kidnapped and is still being held by ICE. So this is by Salt Lake City PL Workers United, their Instagram account, and I just wanted to read this. Solidarity needed. The family of one of your union siblings has been targeted by ICE. This family's father, Julio, was arrested and is currently being detained. Julio works 2 jobs to support his family. Please help your union siblings by donating to this GoFundMe so they can afford the tremendous legal costs and continue to pay their bills while facing this travesty of justice. So this did come out a little bit ago. His family has since come out and said that they are very grateful for all of the donations and such. And however, there is still room to be giving. So here is the GoFundMe that I will be placing in the chat. Okay, I'm just, since this link is so long with all of the like UTM codes. Here we go. So this was made by Julio Irungaray, his daughter. This morning, my amazing dad, Julio, was kidnapped by ICE as he was getting home from his night job and about to get ready to take me to my nursing school clinicals. My dad has been in this country for 35 years. He's been a cook at many different restaurants like Santo Taco in Salt Lake City and Javier's in Ogden. He loves to play soccer and goes to Calle to play with the community. Just like the rest of us, he's been watching the World Cup and rooting for Mexico. He works 2 jobs to help support my brother as we get our college degrees. My dad is a hard-working man who loves his community and has shown up for his community countless times. We are demanding that my dad get his due process. He was already in the process of having his case reviewed, had filed petitions, and was in communications with his lawyer. If you have the means, please help support my family and donate what you can. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. So we see over $21,000 have been raised, but like they've been saying here, the Chantal has been saying here, and the rest of his family, he is working 2 jobs and is a provider for his family. And so anything that you can give is extremely appreciated, because not only does this go towards legal fees, but also to supporting his family. So it just is, there aren't even words to be talking about all of the unconscionable, evil violence that is happening. This is fascism. Cruelty is the point. Not only are these systems inherently violent, but they are enforced in violent ways. And this is enforced even is like that's talking about law enforcement is what I was meaning, but like it doesn't even matter what the legality supposedly is, because it doesn't matter what people's documentation status is. It doesn't matter if they're here in a way that people consider legally. It is an indiscriminate way to just go about profiling people. So, we also have the Salt Lake Community Bail Fund. In addition to Julio, there are a number of people who are being kidnapped, who have been kidnapped and trafficked to these concentration camps. This is unacceptable. It should be unacceptable to all of us. The Salt Lake Community Bail Fund helps with getting people out of jails, but also with these detention centers. So, like, for example, we are committed to ending pretrial detention in Utah. And, like, to be clear, there are people who, like, no due process is happening with all of this. And it is just a way to terrorize people, to subject people to violence, and, again, racial profiling. And to make it so that there are these overt displays to justify these hierarchies of human dignity that fascists seem to get any sense of worth from. So you can learn more about what they do. You can also donate. This not only helps people who are in ICE detention, it also helps people who are being arrested at protests. So you can also request court support. this is a very helpful fund for many, but it should enrage all of us what is going on. And this isn't new. Also, to be clear, this has been happening. Mass deportations have been happening in Democratic administrations, in the Biden administration. It's just that we have people who are now hoods on, Klan hoods on in the administration, doing whatever their racist fever dreams have. They've been just salivating to do. It's disgusting. And we need to present a united front. I don't pretend to have all of the answers. I don't pretend to know what the best course of action is, but when we can show up in a united way, help people organize with unionizing workplaces, but also with mutual aid. There also is, I was going to have this pulled up as well. Salt Lake Community Mutual Aid. They do a lot of really great work. I'm going to share this link from them. You can check out their Instagram. They helped with Pride Without Police, were some of the main organizers there. There are community fridges that they have that are incredibly important in getting people food that so many people need, especially with people who are not able to work, who have been pushed out of positions for all sorts of reasons. But this is what marginalization is. It is violent. It is immoral, especially when it comes to all of these tactics by ICE and cops and capitalism that are built off of these inherently immoral structures, that more people than ever are in need of mutual aid at this time. So it's like, I know personally that being pushed out of my job, that I'm not alone in this for being queer and multiracial, but also with the privilege of having proximity to whiteness and education, that it is, people are feeling the effects of what is going on even more so than what I am. So if you can, do look into giving here. This is a little bit of an overview of some of the events that they have been participating in and running. And for example, this is one of the fridges, and asking for an actual fridge, an AC unit. They do really great work, so you can support them if you would like. And they call them fridges, where people can go and pick up meals. So if you also are experiencing any sort of food insecurity, you are having a hard time making ends meet because of all of the bullshit happening, you can get in contact with them and they can help out. So you can join to volunteer if you feel like you don't have as much money to give. You can learn more about what they're doing. And here are the locations where people can get some food. So if you aren't able to give, you can also, I know we as people in the working class have limited free time, unless you have been forced into free time with being unemployed or underemployed. This is a great way to give back when we don't have as much to give monetarily. So there you go. Okay, I know that is a sobering start to the stream, but also these are the times that we are living in, and we have a responsibility to be trying to do something about it. Okay. Shall we get into Banned Book Club? This section, like I mentioned, is a little bit shorter. I'm gonna put on my reading gloves so I don't destroy this beautiful paperback. I really love how some of these like newest editions of Toni Morrison's books, they have a lot of the same design or similar design so that they like visually are cohesive and are like, oh yeah, these are part of her oeuvre, if you will. Oeuvre. Her body of work, if you will. This section features Pecola. I'm not exactly sure how to say her name. I've heard it said both ways, so we'll see. Maybe I'll just alternate. Have I heard Toni Morrison say? I think I've looked it up before, and then she hasn't said her name specifically. I need to do more digging on that, though. Anyway, for this section of the Bluest Eye, we see Pecola. She is visiting the drugstore. This is after the fight that happened in the previous section between her parents and Sammy, her brother, joining in. And so after she leaves, so like I did want to read this part where like once that initial like adrenaline and like fighting, like this fight or flight that she herself was put in because of this situation, said, there surged in her the desire to heave, but as always, she knew she would not, of like throwing up. Please, God, she whispered into the palm of her hand, please make me disappear. She squeezed her eyes shut. Little parts of her body faded away. Now slowly, now with a rush, slowly again, her fingers went, one by one, then her arms disappeared all the way to the elbow. Her feet now. Yes, that was good. The legs all at once. It was hardest above the thighs. She had to be real still and pull. Her stomach would not go, but finally, it too went away. Then her chest, her neck, the face was hard too. Almost done. Almost. Only her tight, tight eyes were left. They were always left. So again, the focus on eyes. Not an accident. Try as she might, she could never get her eyes to disappear. So what was the point? They were everything. Everything was there in them. All of those pictures, all of those faces. She had long ago given up the idea of running away, to see new pictures, new faces, as Sammy had done so often. He never took her, and he never thought about his going ahead of time, so it was never planned. And it wouldn't have worked anyway. As long as she looked the way she did, as long as she was ugly, she would have to stay with these people. Of, like we talked about in the previous section, of like this internalizing of what ugliness means. It is taught not only by these systems, but her parents who have internalized these systems. And it is not to put blame on them at all. It's to emphasize how nefarious and sinister these systems are, especially with intersections of marginalization, that it is a natural product even of these systems. She then goes to talk about her classmates and her teachers picking on her, as well as her classmates, of being teased, essentially saying that she's undesirable. Then going back to her eyes. It had occurred to Pecola some time ago that if her eyes, those eyes that held the pictures and knew the sights, if those eyes of hers were different, that is to say, beautiful, she herself would be different. So meaning blue, specifically. Her teeth were good, and at least her nose was not big and flat like some of those who were thought so cute. If she looked different, beautiful, maybe Charlie would be different, and Mrs. Breedlove too. So again, we still don't get a name for Mrs. Breedlove. Maybe they'd say, why, look at pretty-eyed Pecola. We mustn't do bad things in front of those pretty eyes. And then it goes into, I don't know if you can see, like this little excerpt, like it's part of the Dick and Jane reader. So this chapter, in chapter 3, is moving on to the family, descriptions of the family. The previous chapter was talking about the house. This is following the form of the Dick and Jane reader that the novel starts out with. And it says, pretty eyes, pretty blue eyes, big blue pretty eyes. So again, emphasizing like the acquisition of language, very Lacanian concept, that we internalize all of these structures with language and therefore our idea of self. Run, Jip, run. Jip runs. Alice runs. Alice has blue eyes. Jerry has blue eyes. Jerry runs. Alice runs. They run with their blue eyes. 4 blue eyes. 4 pretty blue eyes. Blue sky eyes. Blue like Mrs. Forrest blue blouse eyes. Morning glory blue eyes. Alice and Jerry blue storybook eyes. Each night without fail, she prayed for blue eyes. Fervently for a year she had prayed. Although somewhat discouraged, she was not without hope. To have something as wonderful as that happen would take a long, long time. Saying that, it would take a miracle. Thrown in this way into the binding conviction that only a miracle could relieve her, she would never know her beauty. She would only see what there was to see, the eyes of other people. Okay, so then it's talking about her going to the grocery store. Oh, I thought it was the drugstore. She talks about dandelions. She sees dandelions along the way. The dandelions at the base of the telephone pole. Why, she wonders, do people call them weeds? She thought they were pretty. But grown-ups say, Miss Dunyan keeps her yard so nice. Not a dandelion anywhere. Hunky women in black babushkas go into the fields with baskets to pull them up. But they do not want the yellow heads, only the jagged leaves. They make dandelion soup, dandelion wine. Nobody loves the head of a dandelion. Maybe because they are so many, strong, and soon. So again, talking about how, like, beauty, what is considered a flower, what is considered a weed, that this is arbitrary, that there are plants that are just native to an area, and that they grow there naturally. And that someone came in and said, like, we don't want them here, so that means they're a weed. When dandelions, like what she was saying, soup, wine, teas, medicines, they can be incredibly versatile with their uses, as well as like making paint. That was a common practice, especially before there were as many like store-bought paints. Especially when it comes to like westernized types of painting, like the capitalized version of having a store-bought paint. As she's going along, she's very observant, looking at all of the inanimate objects in the environment. She is sending her love to them, saying that they're real to her, that like in a world that doesn't make sense in many ways, that she's able to find solace in observation and being grounded in this type of observation. She climbs 4 wooden steps to the door of Jakubowski's fresh vegetable meat and sundry store. A bell tinkles as she opens it. Standing before the counter, she looks at the array of candies. All Mary Jane's, she decides. 3 for a penny. The resistant sweetness that breaks open at last to deliver peanut butter. The oil and salt which complement the sweet pull of caramel. A peal of anticipation unsettles her stomach. Yeah, so the anticipation not only of like wanting the candies, but also this interaction that she is about to have of being a kid and being forced to exist in a racialized society with all of these structures, that she is forced and like is a representation of so many kids that are forced to have to confront these things every single day, every single minute of every day, and how there is this man who is Mr. Jakubowski, he is an immigrant, but he's a white immigrant, and that he does not see her, that he has this emptiness in his eyes when he looks at her. So this is a little excerpt once again. He does not see her, because for him there's nothing to see. How can a 52-year-old white immigrant storekeeper with the taste of potatoes and beer in his mouth, his mind honed on the doe-eyed Virgin Mary, his sensibilities blunted by a permanent awareness of loss, see a little black girl? Nothing in his life even suggested that the feat was possible, not to say desirable or necessary. Yeah? She looks up at him and sees the vacuum where curiosity ought to lodge, and something more. The total absence of human recognition, the glazed separateness. She does not know what keeps his glance suspended, perhaps because he is grown or a man and she a little girl. But she has seen interest, disgust, even anger in grown male eyes. Yet this vacuum is not new to her. It has an edge. Somewhere in the bottom lid is the distaste. She has seen it lurking in the eyes of all white people. So, the distaste must be for her blackness. All things in her are flux and anticipation, but her blackness is static and dread, and it is the blackness that accounts for, that creates the vacuum edged with distaste and white eyes. She points her finger at the Mary Janes, a little black shaft of finger, its tip pressed on the display window, the quietly inoffensive assertion of a black child's attempt to communicate with a white adult. Hello, Stuart Little is my son. Discovering the commands. I just set those up. Let me know if there are things that are not making sense. So she's having a difficult time communicating with him. And where she's saying them, the word is more sigh than sense. What? These? These? Phlegm and impatience mingle in his voice. Okay, looks like the bot is doing something. That is what I put in there, so. That is kind of lengthy text, though. I don't know. I'll have to condense things, probably. So she's already experiencing all of these feelings. They're coming up. She's having, seeing this in his eyes, being forced to interact with someone who refuses to see her humanity. There is already this huge power imbalance, not only with her being a child and him an adult, but her being a young girl and he is a grown man, that she is a black girl and that he is a white man, and that there are all of these things going into this communication barrier, not only when it comes to speaking, where she's having a hard time actually getting out the words and saying what she needs, what she wants. This is symbolic for larger society, but that he is refusing to listen, refusing to have any sort of meeting of minds, quite literally. And that it's all of this is just wildly unfair. And this is why it's so confusing for kids to be experiencing these things. And that, unfortunately, this is the world that just is being symbolized in this interaction. So he is continuing to be demeaning, and she's just wanting to get the candies. She holds the money toward him. He hesitates, not wanting to touch her hand. She does not know how to move the finger of her right hand from the display counter or how to get the coins out of her left hand. Finally, he reaches over and takes the pennies from her hand. His nails graze her damp palm, so her being nervous. Outside, Piccola feels the inexplicable shame ebb. Dandelions, so she sees them again. A dart of affection leaps out from her to them, but they do not look at her and do not send love back. She thinks, they are ugly. They are weeds. Preoccupied with that revelation, she trips on the sidewalk crack. Anger stirs and wakes in her. It opens its mouth, and like a hot-mouthed puppy, laps up the dredges of her shame. Anger is better. There is a sense of being in anger, a reality and presence, an awareness of worth. It is a lovely surging. Her thoughts fall back to Mr. Jakubowski's eyes, his phlegmy voice. The anger will not hold. The puppy is too easily surfeited. Its thirst too quickly quenched. It sleeps. The shame wells up again, its muddy rivulets seeping into her eyes. What to do before the tears come? She remembers the Mary Janes. So, once again, just having all of this shame be imposed on her that is completely needless and senseless, that should not be. It should not exist. And yet, she's being forced to experience this, as so many people do. I did want to talk about the Mary Jane candy, but before we get into that, well, actually, yeah, before we get into that, I'll finish this section because we're almost done. But she uses the candy as a way to have some comfort with everything happening. Hello, Linton. Welcome. How are you doing? Each pale yellow wrapper has a picture on it, a picture of little Mary Jane, for whom the candy is named. Smiling white face, blonde hair in gentle disarray, blue eyes looking at her out of a world of clean comfort. The eyes are petulant, mischievous. To Piccola, they are simply pretty. She eats the candy, and its sweetness is good. To eat the candy is somehow to eat the eyes. Eat Mary Jane. Love Mary Jane. Be Mary Jane. 3 pennies had bought her 9 lovely orgasms with Mary Jane. Lovely Mary Jane, for whom a candy is named. Yeah, so talking about how this is feeling like she can consume things to essentially consume the sense of whiteness and have more acceptance in society. Hello, Monstrous Black Doll, welcome. How are you doing? We are currently reading The Bluest Eye. This is by Toni Morrison. It is an excellent book. I'm doing all right. There's a lot of surging with ICE raids that are happening in the US that we were talking about earlier. So just currently talking about these constructs of white supremacy and racism that are embedded in society, which Toni Morrison talks very clearly on. Okay, so getting into the history of the Mary Jane candy, this is a candy that was first marketed in 1914. And it changed ownership for a bit, but it mostly is made of molasses and peanut butter. It's a little bit oily and salty, but it has Mary Jane, this character of Mary Jane, that the art was inspired by the cartoon Buster Brown. And we have to call out immediately that Buster Brown is an incredibly problematic and racist comic. So this is Buster Brown, and this was around the same time. So this would be, the artwork would be associated with the artwork of Mary Jane's would be associated with this comic at the time. So the characters of Buster Brown, Mary Jane, and his dog, Tige, became well known to the American public in the early 20th century. The Buster Brown suit reflected his outfit and became very popular for young boys, with his little page boy haircut. The character of Buster Brown may have been loosely based off of Granville Hamilton Fisher, a son of Charles and Anna Fisher of Flushing, New York. Outcole copied Fisher's physical appearance, so that's the artist or the comic, the cartoonist, I guess I should say, copied Fisher's physical appearance for his comic strip. The name Buster came from the popularity of Buster Keaton, then a child actor in vaudeville. Roger Cushman Clark, of Deadwood, South Dakota, was also described as the original model for the Buster Brown character. So this is an example of one of the highly racialized and racist comics at the time. This was not incredibly common, but there are definitely instances of this happening in this comic. So what would you do with a boy like this? Gee, I have a fine idea. How would you like to make $1? Fine. So again, this upper class white family wanting to essentially play a prank where this black boy is the joke and saying oh, getting fitted for a wig, and it's supposedly funny because his mother thinks oh, you're just dirty. This is incredibly racist. And then he leaves. So once again, just subjecting children to this kind of dehumanization. This is incredibly vile and reprehensible. But I did want to not to I think it's good to be acknowledging that, but also this is what the book is about. We need to be acknowledging the origins of why Toni Morrison even chose these things. She is incredibly researched with her writing, and so this would not have escaped her knowledge. This is a little excerpt by Baby Back Books, who does some incredible literary reviews and analysis. This is on the Bluest Eye, and this is on the section or this particular chapter where it is featuring the Breedlove family. Here is the family: mother, father, Dick, and Jane. And so this will touch on the section before this, but it does also get into the section that we're at here. I think it would be a good tie-in. Have either of you read this book, read any Toni Morrison at all?
And we come into a vision and a space of a drunk, aggressive black man and the martyr,
really incredible
black woman.
I mean, it's very heavy, but also that's the nature of it, of directly confronting these oppressive systems and intersections of marginalization. But I mean, Toni Morrison being the incredible artist that she is. I mean, she's since passed, but obviously her art and memory and spirit live on. That she does it in a way that should sit with us.
Now, as we move through this story, I want to say that some of the greatest critics of Morrison's works are angered by...
Okay, I know that her voice is, very soothing, incredibly ASMR oriented, but let me know if this is, I'm trying to adjust the audio, if it is needing to be turned up at all.
How do I say this? By how black men are written, by the way that they are perceived. I want to say perceived. Because Morrison says that there was a woman that came up to her once. She says this in one of her interviews. It's a lovely story. And this woman comes up to her and says, I love you so much for writing this book, but I also hate you for it. Because why did you have to let them know? Why did you have to let them see us like that? Why did you have to throw our black men under the bus? Why? I know you've seen the title of this video. I know that you know that one of the main things I want to talk about is the black man. I really want to speak on that,
title.
But let's take him as Morrison gives him to us. Let's take the black man as Morrison is giving him, and let's just kind of look at my characters right now, and then I'll get to bigger pictures later. But right now, we're just going to sit with the book, and what a beautiful book it is. We are at, where were we at again? Chapter 3. We're still in the beginning of the book. We're still getting to meet some characters. Mrs. Breedlove and Collie Breedlove are fighting. Horrible fight. And we get a scene of Pecola hiding out. And she says, this is page 44. Letting herself breathe easy now, Pecola covered her head with the quilt. The sick feeling which she had tried to prevent by holding in her stomach came quickly in spite of her precaution. There surged in her the desire to heave, but as always, she knew she would not.
This is the
Please,
section that
God,
you read.
She whispered. Please make me disappear. She squeezed her eyes shut. Little parts of her body faded away. Now slowly, now with a rush, slowly again. Her fingers went one by one, then her arms disappeared all the way to her elbow. Her feet now, yes, that was good. The legs all at once. It was hardest above the thighs. She had to be real still and pull.
What is their channel name?
Her stomach would not
Baby
go.
Back Books,
But finally it too went.
which is very cute.
Went away.
I will share. We read a little bit of everything from philosophy to high fantasy on this channel. Spoilers are welcome, so don't hold back. But be kind and welcoming of all thought and opinions. I will share.
Then her chest, her neck. The face was hard too. Almost done. Almost. Only her tight, tight eyes were left. They were always left. So you get, this is really where the concept of wanting this eye change to happen. It's not so much seeing whiteness and wanting cleanness. There's a sense in which being accepted into a beauty standard, being accepted into a certain look, and being accepted as something more desirable is a way of being more invisible for Pecola. In order to disappear, there comes a point in which disappearing means fitting into a standard.
Yeah, of not standing out in ways that are condemned in society. Yes, this is the first time that eyes specifically are mentioned in this way, being tied to Pecola. I've heard it said both ways. Like, I still have not been able to find a reference of Toni Morrison saying this name, just to get that original intention, but I will be doing that research.
At the end of this chapter, you get Pecola, who has gone to hang out with some of the neighborhood. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. I've blinked that out, and I've put it on the screen. My bad. Sorry. Please keep your kids out of here. She goes and hang out with the local streetwalkers, the local night walkers, and they have a moment of discussing how much they hate men. After dealing with seeing her mother fighting and seeing this positioning of her mom as taking on the role of martyr, and her father taking on the role of having a place to exert his anger, frustrations, and hurt.
This is getting into the next section. I think this is a good introduction.
These two exist in this yin and yang give and pull of martyrdom and an inability to properly express feelings and emotions. So when these streetwalkers are discussing their hatred of men and their dislike of men, there's a freedom of that. Because as Pecola understands it, you're tied with something you don't necessarily want and hurts you and harms you. So this idea that men can exist and you don't need them is very eye-opening for her. As we move into chapter 5, we get a description of a certain type of Black woman.
Okay. So this is like she mentions getting into chapter 5, which we've not started yet. However, I did also want to show this. This is picking up from a previous section once again, but talking about how there are these structures that are internalized. This is the Aaliyah Archives, and she has some really great content as well. I will share her channel. Some incredible literature recommendations and analysis.
Action from being further inflicted with the pain of not being white. Threw it as a mantle over them and went about the world with it. They had looked upon themselves and saw nothing to contradict the statement. In fact, support for it leaning at them from every billboard, every movie, every glance. Yes, they had said, you are right. And they took the ugliness in their hands, threw it as a mantle over them, and went about the world with it. This internalization of ugliness could be viewed as a form of protection from being further inflicted with the pain of not being white. But the downward spiral of the Breedloves begins with Pauline. The complete indifference with which a rusty.
So Pauline is the name of the Breedloves' mother, and still in our reading, she has not been named. So she's just called Mrs. Breedlove, which also is symbolic of feeling like that is her only identity in society, is being diminished to just having a role as a wife and mother, not as much of a human being. So not to say that being a wife and mother can't be like a humanizing experience, like that shouldn't be like diminished at all, but that within patriarchy and sexism, that is what she is diminished to. So this is again like going a little bit ahead, but I think this really lends itself well to understanding the previous section when we were talking about the fight that had happened. Also, like Baby Back Books was saying that there is this through line of anger, how sometimes like with this shame that is imposed, that anger is one of like the few emotions that feels more empowering. Okay.
Nail was met when it punched clear through her foot during her second year of life, saved Pauline Williams from total anonymity. Slight as it was, this deformity explained for her many things that would have been otherwise incomprehensible. Her general feeling of separateness and unworthiness she blamed on her foot. As Pauline tries to navigate a world that doesn't see her, she falls into the trap of equating her physical appearance with her moral worth, a move that Morrison describes as literal stripping of the mind. Along with the idea of romantic love, she was introduced to another, physical beauty, probably the most destructive ideas in the history of human thought. Both originated in envy, thrived in insecurity, and ended in delusion. In equating physical beauty with virtue, she stripped
You can
her
hear Juniper,
mind,
my cat.
bound it, and collected self contempt by the heap. After many attempts to fit within the standard, changing her hair, her clothes, and wearing makeup, Pauline realizes that beauty is not subjective. Before giving birth to Pecola, she is described as a horse by the doctors. This clear act of dehumanization justifies the social caste system of ugliness. Pauline will never live up to the unrealistic beauty standards enforced by structural violence, so she decides to fully entrench herself in her distorted sense of inferiority. She has accepted and acquiesced to the external values and idealization of beauty, highlighted by whiteness, and she accepts her ugliness as her truth. She becomes a cleaning maid for a wealthy white family where she enjoys brushing the daughter's blonde hair out of avoidance of maintaining her own daughter's tangled black puffs of rough wool. It's saddening to see.
Okay. So just so that we don't get into more spoilers, I will stop the video there, but we will continue with both of these amazing creators as we're going along with the reading. Something that I did want to mention is that, like, even without experiencing anti-blackness in my own life, but like having experienced being racialized in many ways, especially growing up being assumed to be predominantly white until going through puberty and my hair texture changed more, that like hair was dealing with my hair, or that's how I felt it to be, of having to just deal with my hair rather than viewing it as something that is beautiful. That was taught to me through like a lack of people understanding how to cut curly hair just in general, not even just like tighter textures of curly hair. And also like with caretakers around me, like adults around me, showing resentment towards my hair and therefore me as well, because they didn't understand how to do my hair. And that was just taught of like, oh, this isn't ideal. This isn't what is preferred. And this is me not experiencing all of these other intersections of marginalization as well. So, not to like be centering my own experience, but that is something that like I went through, that is just even like the smallest example of what people go through, especially young Black girls. Okay. I did want to show this. Angela Davis on Black feminism and intersectionality. I do have to refresh it because I think I'm going to do that weird thing that's like content not found. That happens if I like have videos up that have been up for a little bit.
Okay.
Dr. Davis, you are my hero. You introduced me to Black feminism in the midst of a Black male culture that claimed that patriarchy was inevitable. And so I'm thanking you for that. You're my inspiration. I probably have 20,000 questions for you, but I'm only going to ask two. The first is, you talk about Black feminism, and I've spoken to so many of my Black brothers in the day, and I've listened to so many Black leaders stand before us and preach patriarchy, whether it be religiously inculcated or secularly. Please tell us all why Black feminism is not obsolete and why Black feminists still have work to do within the Black community.
You know, I think that you very articulately and very passionately express that need. You know, what I would add to what you've already very eloquently said is that feminism, Black feminism, women of color feminism doesn't belong to one group of people. It doesn't belong to one gender. And as a matter of fact, we need, particularly in this group of leaders, I should have said in my talk that, that leaders should develop a strong feminist approach, regardless of whether they are women or men.
Yeah.
And do you want me to tell you why? You want me to tell you what I mean by that?
Yes.
Because feminism has evolved. Feminism has changed. There was a time when I shied away from any identification as a feminist. After all, that's what white women did, right?
Yeah.
But increasingly, large numbers of black women, women of color, began to engage with the field both through scholarship and through activism. And it seems to me that the most important feminism, because there's not just one feminism. We can say there are a bunch of feminisms. You know, there's bourgeois feminisms, as we sometimes say. But the point is that
explains why the older women in my family feel the way they feel. What part exactly? Juniper. If you don't mind expanding on that.
the feminism embraced by scholars and activists like Audre Lorde or Chandra Mohanty or Jackie Alexander is a feminism that incorporates a commitment to think what is otherwise considered to be disparate, to think these things together, to think these ideas together, to think race and class and gender and sexuality not separately but together, to think about them as cross-cutting, as intersectional.
The not identifying with feminist. I guess due to the way things were when Davis was a teenager. Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, there was a lot of resistance, people of a certain generation, I think, of like, oh, that means that you're burning bras and you're like causing a scene, which also like, cool, great. Like, that's been necessary with so many kinds of resistance. But yeah, of like almost like buying into these ideas about respectability politics and like, oh, we have to be viewed as like, in order to be accepted, we shouldn't be going against these sort of things, these sort of norms. And it also is a way to suppress people from having more of this like intersectional dialogue and seeing where there's commonality with forms of resistance too.
And
like, I grew up Mormon, LDS, and people would say all the time, like, because like I guess before I start with that thought, would I identified more as a feminist, like even as a teenager, but it was not something that I really said out loud because I just knew it was looked down upon, especially when people like, there was this idea of it being extreme. And when there are all of these belief systems saying that there should be particular gender roles, that like you were not more than these gender roles, that it already felt like it was being subversive. And even without really understanding why I couldn't express these things, I knew somehow like, oh, I shouldn't call myself a feminist out loud. It wasn't until I was like in college saying that I was a feminist at BYU, which is a Mormon school, a Mormon college that's owned by the LDS Church. Hello, androgynous water. Good to see you. Good to see you as well. Glad you held on to that feminism despite an oppressive environment. Thank you. Yeah, and like the need for just talking about our collective liberation, that like when some of us are oppressed, all of us are. Like, clearly that is not distributed equally, the oppression, but how we need to be looking at it. But not to like be centering myself, just talking about like how this evolution even occurred from like personal experience, is that like even being more like, I had professors there that were like, oh, this is like, I call myself a feminist, and that was viewed as like very radical, being in the English department, and so being the nerd and also like wanting, like, having to confront more of these like systems that were oppressive and not feeling okay in them, would like go to their office hours and be like, hi, can we talk about this? And they're like, okay. And they would say they would get a lot of shit from people. And the difference between white feminists and the lived experience of Black women in the Jim Crow era, maybe. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And yes, how these forms of oppression are not distributed equally, which is why we need to be talking about intersectionality to begin with, which I think Toni Morrison like writes about so incredibly, like, profoundly, of just saying like you can extricate all of these types of discrimination based on gender and race and sexuality and immigration status. Like, she gets into that as well. But yeah, like, even being in college where it was like supposedly a little more acceptable, like there would be dudes that would be like, oh, so does that mean you're like a feminazi? Like, that is something people would say a lot. Like, that is still something that's said within a lot of Mormon circles. So that goes to show like what people think, and that as people have a resistance to identifying as being feminist, that you can't separate it from all of these belief systems of like whether it's religion or whether it is being enforced through like actual like legislation, like what you're talking about, monstrous, of saying like, yeah, there are people who are experiencing even more oppression, and that in order to just continue in society, it's like we're wanting to just survive. And this is often what is forced on people, and their beliefs then reflect that. I don't know if I like captured that well.
That
that
describes,
point, but there you go.
to me, what anyone who considers herself or himself to be progressive during these times ought to be able to do. The need to identify the connections between what is happening in Iraq and what is happening in San Quentin is a pressing one. And that is a feminist approach.
Yes.
The need to understand the way in which state violence expresses itself through the military, through the police, through the prison system, but it also expresses itself in the bedroom. There is a connection between what we think about as privatized violence, domestic violence,
Yes. Yes.
and public violence. And so it is incumbent upon all of us, I believe, to explore those connections. And that, to me, marks the kind of feminist approach that I think you're talking about.
Oh, thank you. As we're talking about intersectionality and intersectional feminism, this need for collective liberation, how this idea, like what you were mentioning before, monstrous, of like there would have been more successful feminist movements in the past if there hadn't have been segregated feminist movements. And like this goes along not only with feminism, but other forms of organizing and liberation, like with unionizing and in so many other ways. But I did want to show this video of Kimberly Crenshaw, who is credited with coining the term intersectionality. And it is an idea that has existed for a while, but she was one of the first people to be talking about it within that exact terminology. And this is a video by Lafayette College that I wanted to show. Okay. So, women's and gender studies major Sarah Hayett, 18, interviews Kimberly Crenshaw about intersectional feminism. Crenshaw served as the keynote speaker on September 17th, 2015, for the 30th anniversary of Women's and Gender Studies at Lafayette.
Lafayette College, I'd like to welcome Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. She is a professor of law at UCLA and Columbia University and an expert in the fields of civil rights, Black feminist legal theory, and race, racism, and the law. On top of that, she's also the director of the Center of Intersectionality and Social Policy at Columbia University, which she co-founded in 2011, and also the co-founder of the African American Policy Forum. On top of that, she's the creator of intersectionality theory. We're so glad to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And speaking of intersectionality, that actually leads us right into our first question. For the students who may not know, what is intersectionality? Can you define that for us?
Well, I have to practice my elevator version of it, but intersectionality is basically the idea that we experience life, sometimes discrimination, sometimes benefits, based on a number of different identities that we have. The basic term came out of a case where I was looking at Black women who were being discriminated against, not just as Black people, not just as women, but as Black women. So intersectionality was basically a metaphor to say, well, they've got race discrimination that they're facing coming from one direction, they've got gender discrimination coming from another direction, and they're colliding in their lives in ways that we don't really anticipate and understand. So intersectionality is basically meant to help people think about the fact that discrimination can happen on the basis of several different factors at the same time. And we need to have a language and ability to see it in order to address it.
Incredible. I saw an Elaine Brown clip yesterday speaking about her experience with bourgeois feminists when combating an ignorant interviewer might be a good addition along with her work on Friday. Ooh, I love that. Okay. And we do have, oh, I love this account. That's actually the Afro-Marxist. That's the account that I was showing that Angela Davis video from. We'll watch that after this. Thank you very much.
I know my journey to women's and gender studies was based on intersectional factors. Like, I'm Jewish and I'm a woman, and and being raised in a Reformed Jewish family with a female rabbi was a huge. It really informed my feminism. Yeah. And I was wondering, what was your journey to women's and gender studies and intersectionality?
That's a wonderful question. So I was raised by a mother and father who were deeply involved in the civil rights movement. We talked about social justice at the dinner table every day. When I came home, my friends used to tease me because I had to study for dinner. Like, my parents wanted me to talk about, what did you learn today? What did you observe today? How do you defend what you think?
No pressure.
No pressure, exactly. So that's the household that I grew up in. And my mother is what, I guess, in the last century, we used to call race women. They're women who were deeply committed to the idea of racial justice, and they were committed to fighting for the rights of people of color, including and especially women. So she would talk about some of the ways that racism gets experienced by Black people who are women, not just Black people who are men, and basically give me tools to see when it was coming at me. So, different ways that you might be spoken to as a black woman as opposed to being a white woman, having to keep your eye out for harassing behavior at work. Sexual harassment actually came from black women's employment experience. The first plaintiffs were black women because these were kind of things that would happen to black women in the workforce. So just the general way in which you're a woman but not quite the kind of woman that you're supposed to be. These are the kinds of things that my mom taught me about. So I had sort of a race lens from the family as a whole, and then my mother would talk more specifically about, now as a woman, these are the things that you're going to have to look out for. So I was kind of naturally drawn by the time I got to college,
Juniper also
both
says
to Africana studies, which I was one of my majors, and the other major was government, and then I did a minor in women's studies.
To go back to what you said about your parents, that they are involved in the civil rights movement, and nowadays there's kind of this resurgence of Black Lives Matter. But the names that stand out in the Black Lives Matter movement and get the most attention are Eric Garner and Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown, but we don't see like the Yvette Smiths or the Renisha McBrides. And why do you think that is, that the black women who are also suffering from the systemic violence are getting kind of pushed under the rug, not getting that national attention?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's an issue that I've been very much concerned with, and it was one of the reasons we started Say Her Name, to draw attention to the names that people don't have. They don't roll off the lips. We don't know the names of Tanisha Anderson and Michelle Cusseau. I've thought a little bit about why this is the case, and I can share that we have been participating in some of the marches. We were participating, for example, in the Eric Garner March when we came up with Say Her Name, because part of the march is you're marching and you're lifting up the names, and so then we started saying some of the women's names, and people were looking at us like, what are you talking about? And so that's why we just said, well, just say her name. You're right, just say it, because saying it brings attention to the fact that there are women who are also killed by the police. We eventually created a big banner that had the names and the photos of 20 black women who were killed by the police. And for a while we were marching in the march with it, but we realized that actually the poster needed to be seen by people in the march. So we came out of the march and stood on the side, of the road and held up the banner so people walking by would see it. And we noticed that some people gave us the thumbs up. A lot of people were just it didn't compute. The idea of women being killed by the police was just something they'd never imagined. And so they would come over and they took pictures and wanted to know about the stories. And then there were a few people who, were like this, right? This is not about women killed by the police. This is about black men killed by the police. And that goes somewhat to your question. I think that there's a framing of the problem of police violence that's largely influenced by an idea that this is about competing masculinities. This is about, the state, or basically some men clothed with the power of the state trying to constrain, individuals that are seen as hyper-masculine, out of control, and therefore in need of coercive punishment. And there is an element of police violence that is informed by that, but that's not the only aspect of police killings that we have to worry about. So in the same way that lynching, for example, was often framed as an assault on black male sexuality, which many times it was also the cover for many other things that other people were subject to, including black women who were also lynched. So we've been trying to broaden the frame so people can see how state violence is rationalized by a lot of different stereotypes. But the most important one that black women share is that as black people, more of a threat to the police, more likely to engage in conduct that puts police officers' lives at risk, and more in need of harsh disciplinary kind of coercive physical punishment. And we see this in cases that black women have experienced in their homes, in their bedrooms, around the corner from where they live, in their cars, everywhere.
You kind of hinted at this, but...
Yeah, this goes back to slavery, chattel slavery, where police forces started as slave catchers. So the phenomenon of advocating for the humanity of black women's lives when it comes to systemic brutality, police brutality, the the law enforcement that represents these violent systems of oppression. It's like, this is not a new concept. This is something that, especially as like we're talking more about intersectionality in general, that like Audre Lorde would touch on, especially talking about being like, she called herself a Black lesbian warrior poet. Super fierce. And how she was talking about this idea of the need of a global feminism of women of color. And so like the idea of that there are these aspects of marginalization that are not equally shared among marginalized populations, but also the need for viewing all of our oppression to be interconnected. This was something that Audre Lorde talked about, as well as some other academics and feminists, especially Black feminists, but like bell hooks, for instance. But Kimberly Crenshaw is the first to be coming up with like this theory in particular. So like, as we're talking about queerness, transness, disability, ability, like whatever we're viewing as a disability, because that is a moving goalpost and it's often dictated by class itself, that all of these are part of her theory of intersectionality that I want to get further into with pulling up some of her readings as we get along in the Bluest Eye. Yes, we are working on some emotes here. Hopefully those will be coming soon. But Linton, that is cute. I mean, that is very welcome. If you ever need some examples, I mean, Juniper was just up here. Also on the YouTube, there are a few clips that I've put up of Kit and Juniper. There's a playlist called Cat Moments that you can also find like images there for reference. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
One of the biggest critiques of Black Lives Matter is that all lives should matter. What would be your response to it?
Yeah, well, that's, you know, the Black Lives Matter popular version of colorblindness, right? We can't speak with any particularity about the risks that certain things will happen to people who are embodied in a particular way, because to do that is to exclude all the other people, right? So, you know, one of the most tremendously troubling things that happened after the civil rights movement is the way that some of the victories of the civil rights movement have been turned on their head. So, you know, Brown versus Board of Education now has been twisted into an idea that it is discriminatory to take into account race at all in school assignments, even if race is being taken into account to continue the process of desegregation, right? So the idea is everybody is similarly situated with respect to race. That's part of the idea behind all lives matter. Like everybody is similarly situated with respect to the likelihood that they'll be driving down the street one day and a police officer will, you know, interrupt their day and they might end up in handcuffs or worse. It just is not the case that everyone is similarly situated with respect to this. And if it were to happen to people at the same rates that it's happening to Black people, if it were to happen to white people, the responses, I think we have plenty of reason to believe, will be different. So this is all of the background that makes Black Lives Matter something to say. It's being said because the evidence suggests that they don't. So it's aspirational. Black lives should matter the same as everybody else. So just erasing what is being said by saying they all do is just denying exactly what the circumstance is, which is there are hugely different risks and circumstances of being encountered by the police, and that's what Black Lives Matter is trying to politicize.
That's great. Thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah. I need to find the drawing tab pen since my ADHD ass lacks options. That's fair. I mean, don't put pressure on yourself as well, but I mean, your talents are very much welcomed here.
time to join us today.
Well, thank you for the wonderful questions.
It's my pleasure. It was really, I was so excited to get to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.
An incredible person. Okay, let's play that video that you shared, Linton. Yeah, and if you aren't able to find that, that's totally fine. No worries. But I do appreciate the gesture, even if like you aren't able to find it, so don't put pressure on yourself. But art is very much welcomed here. I don't know if you're part of the Discord, which like no pressure to be if you are not, because I know there are like a million Discord servers that we could all be. You can also share some things there if you want. We have locked down the Discord more, so if you are wanting to join the Discord, I will, now that I have commands up, I'm gonna work on trying to do this. Discord. Ta-da! Yes, we are requiring an entry survey, and yeah, I guess that's all that really needs to be said. That may be annoying to some, but I would rather keep the people there safe. I'm very protective of the people there, especially against a lot of these 4chan idiots. So, this is what you shared, Linton. Elaine Brown slams bourgeois feminists. And once again, from the account Afro-Marxist, highly recommend this channel. I'll also share this channel for you all to subscribe to if you are interested.
I can recall also, there was, I don't know whether we participated in it, but there was something about the showers. We brought in these mobile bathrooms or showers or something. And I think we also, no one ever says this, but I'm pretty sure we had some security people there because we were pretty rough and we didn't play. And so I think we had some security. I mean, people have the idea that there was just this guy, Brad, and we provided some, food. And I must say that the food we provided was really good food and was hot food. And it was beautifully cooked. I mean, it wasn't, junk food. It wasn't snacks and, whatever. It was really good food and everybody was happy. And I presume we had plates there because I remember people always going over there during the day and the evening because we fed more than one meal. It wasn't just... No, we probably cooked it at the school. We had a big school on 65th and East 14th Street in Oakland, and we had a huge kitchen there, and we knew the kitchen was perfect because the health department ran through there every 5 minutes trying to find one thing wrong with our school. Amazing. We fed our children 3 meals a day, so it probably wasn't going to be hard for us to just add some more food to that. The meals that we were feeding kids, we had kids from as young as 2 to, in the school up to about, 12. And then after school, we had teen programs, and a lot of people came for dinner. So we always, at that school, were making breakfast, lunch, and dinner anyway. And so there's probably an easy way to we had a big kitchen there, really big.
And who actually did the cooking?
I mean, I ran the Black Panther Party at that time. I mean, everybody had their jobs and their assignments. There was a woman probably named Carol Granison. She was probably the nutritionist that always... because our kids ate very well. Back in the day, we're talking about 1970 something. And so we had our kids would think of yogurt as dessert, which you cannot imagine in the Black community how really advanced or whatever we could say if it is advanced. Or they would think of, a stick of celery with peanut butter on it as a real treat. So, and then we had our own garden there. We grew some vegetables, broccoli and something, lettuce, what have you. So, I mean, the kids grew it, and we ate that food. So we had very, very, very great focus. Remember, the Black Panther Party, as I said, we gave away food. We did breakfast programs. We understood that food was a fundamental right and a fundamental necessity, obviously. So it wasn't difficult. We had cooks. So, I mean, whoever was cooking in the kitchen cooked the food. Yeah. It was not myself, because I can't cook even as we speak.
You'll be amused to know one of the people we interviewed said, Elaine Brown cooked all the food.
Who was that?
I don't remember. It was somebody that just sort of said, "Oh, she probably did it." It was somebody in the.
No, we had a massive operation. We had a school. We had, people, that must not have been anybody in the Black Panther Party because, first of all, anybody that knows me knows one thing about me, I cannot cook at all. And I mean, I'm talking about serious flaws in cooking. Like, I'm going to cut my thumb if I cut an onion or something, seriously.
But would it have been women mostly?
No, why would you say that? Why would you say that? That's what women say. They always think the Black Panther Party was some kind of chauvinist entity. They fail to remember that NAACP, SNCC, there was no progressive organization, there was no black organization that had any women in leadership except the Black Panther Party. Now, why is it that people would think women would cook? As a matter of fact, the chief cook was a guy named Russell, whatever his last name was, I can't think of.
Oh, great, yeah.
And the chief...
Yep. This is a common misconception in talking about the Black Panthers as being sexist. There are a number of films that portray this misconception, but yeah. How about listen to people who were part of the organization? Satiated. Ooh, did you have anything tasty to eat? Time for the cats. Tell them I say hi. I'm doing all right. We're talking about the Bluest Eye today, talking about intersectionality, the need for collective liberation, how we need to be talking about intersectionality in order to understand how not everyone experiences the harms of these systems equally, but that we need to be viewing our liberation as something that is interconnected. I craved only for the soup. You still have a fever? I know, I was going to ask you how you're doing. 2 bowls of ramen. Oh, I'm sorry that you still aren't feeling well. Did you have any spicy ramen? I think it depends on who you were. They were individuals that caused harm, but that's not the whole party. Yeah, exactly. That's a really great nuance to hold there. Thank you, Monstrous. How would you know? I think it's being Daisy. Also, spicy garlic and shoyu. Ooh, that sounds incredible. Yeah, anytime I'm sick or like other people are sick, I'm like, you should have something spicy. This clears out your sinuses. And people are like, why? Especially white people. It's like, well, how about try it?
Cook at our lamppost was a guy named Mojo. I mean, so why would we think that? It's insulting to me because people think the black people, that we had some kind of animalistic thug boys and that all the women were bitches in the kitchen. No, it was not like that. And but it calls that stereotype. Yeah. So I'm checking it now so that you have a consciousness that I hear that. Yeah. I hear people criticize the Black Panther Party all the time. Oh, it wasn't a part. It was, it was chauvinist. Oh, excuse me. Is the world not? You know a country that's not a patriarchy? Tell me which one it is. Do you know one?
Yeah, especially because of colonization and creating these nation states based off of patriarchy and oppression. Monstrous, I should ask you, what part of your name do you prefer? Monstrous, Black Doll, Doll, the full thing, just so I am calling you by what you prefer.
Yeah, I just wanted you to clarify that for us.
I know, but that question wouldn't have come up if you hadn't thought that only women would be cooking.
I didn't think that, but other people have said that, so I just really, you're the only source of...
Who has said what?
Well, it's just like the general conversations sometimes that you...
Who are these people that say these things?
Just in my research and talking to people, it's not that anybody thinks that necessarily, but those are the questions I've been asked. And
but this is a question of women. This is a question that women ask, and mostly so-called feminists of the Gloria Steinem ilk, or whatever they now want to call themselves, the third wave, second wave, whatever wave they are. And this is a very bourgeois feminist notion because they always think that we have to get out of the kitchen And you know what black women said? You know what my mother said when they had get out of the kitchen and into the street? Yeah, I'd like to get out of the kitchen, your kitchen. Yeah. And it didn't even occur to these Betty Friedens and whatever her name is, former CIA agent Bunny, Gloria Steinem. Right. I mean, she admits that she worked for the CIA, so it's not something Elaine is making up, okay? She talks about it, and she was also a Playboy bunny. And Gloria Steinem and the Betty Friedan, that group, those are the kinds of people that constantly said, oh, the Black Panthers were chauvinists, so I didn't want to be in it. So I go, okay, fine, well, what group are you in? Because you denounced the woman that became Roe, and she said she didn't accept third trimester abortion.
Yep. I don't care that Gloria Steinem was a Playboy bunny. I think the Playboy enterprise is sexist, but also, yeah, especially when we're talking about like appealing to the male gaze, but how I think like sex work in general can be just demonized among many sort of feminist movements or people who think of themselves as feminists. When people who engage in sex work, this isn't always the case, but a lot of the time it is out of necessity, especially when we are living in cis hetero patriarchy capitalism, that like we are forced to engage in ways in certain kinds of work that like if we had more opportunities may not as much. A lot of the early liberation movements were based in revolutionary theology, and while it had benefits in terms of building community, it did lead to a lot of the pitfalls of Abrahamic religion regarding queer people, LGBTQIA+ people, and women among some. Yeah, exactly. Which is why it's like, this is how the ruling class, the oppressive forces that be, get us to point fingers at one another with a lot of brainwashing with these systems through religion, through education in many ways, that it gets us to fight one another and exclude one another rather than focusing on our collective liberation. What might be easiest for Doll, maybe. Okay. Hello, Doll. Very cute. My two former names, Black Trans Baddie, love, and Evil Black Doll, also love. I'll probably go back to one of those eventually. A lot of people call me Baddie. Ooh, I mean, I'm happy calling you any of these things. So, if you want me to call you Baddie, I'm happy to. Or calling you Doll. The dolls. Support the dolls.
You know, and
yeah, whatever you prefer.
Proselytizing on this, I just want to make clear that who cooked the food, like what? What difference does it make? We've thought of ourselves as an organization. If you had a job to do, you had an assignment. We were a paramilitary organization in the sense that people did not vote on what you did or what you didn't do. If you could cook, you would be cooking. If you could handle a gun, you would be handling a gun. Most women could not handle guns like men could, although all of us were trained on weapons, okay? So if you want to ask me about the internal workings of the Black Panther Party, then we can ask that. But when you start then that's a separate conversation. Yeah. But we're talking about the position that we were the only Black organization that took that. Where were the Weather Underground when we occupied the building? Do you know? Yeah. SDS, the little People's Park people. Where were they? Where was the SCLC, NAACP, Africa, the Freedom, whatever it is, Africa, New Republic of Africa? Where were all those groups? So here you have an organization that had such an understanding of revolution in America that it actually participated and understood the connection and didn't care about the majority of people there were white. So where was the Native American? Where was AIM? Where was the Puerto Ricans? I don't know. We were there. Now you're going to question me about who cooked the food. What difference does it make to you who cooked the food? That's my point.
Right, yeah. No, that's great. You've really clarified.
I'm sorry to be, but I have to tell you, because we have to know this stuff. What difference does it really make who cooked the food? The Black Panther Party delivered it every day. And if I remember, it was like 2 runs. I didn't do that. I was the chairman of the Black Panther Party. I was running everything. I was running, in 77, I was running Lionel Wilson's campaign. We had a big garbage problem that we had. We were trying to develop garbage. We had all kinds of other issues that we were working on. This was one of the issues that we were involved in, one of them. And we put our people where they were assigned to be, and they knew to do it. Nobody said, oh, let's see, I shouldn't cook because I'm a woman, what do you think? No, it didn't go down like that. If I said, and if the people under me said, and everybody that was under me, and the only one who wasn't under me was Huey P. Newton, he was in Cuba. So what went on the day-to-day operations of the Black Panther Party, we had a central committee, and so who did the newspaper, who sold the papers on that corner, I didn't deal with that. I don't know who sold those newspapers, per se, because they had people over them. And then I was over those people, it went like that. Okay, I'm finished. But now you have a perspective, because the Black Panther Party was a paramilitary organization. And unlike that's why we got stuff done. We didn't have people sitting around having dialogue about what do you feel and how do you feel. We didn't care how you felt. You either make a commitment to this or not. We'll listen to what you think is a good strategy, but it's not based on how you feel. It's based on what is going to be a correct strategy to create revolutionary change in America. Now, did we fail? Obviously, we did, because the party is over. But our tenets and our strategies, I think, are valid. I mean, the FBI came down on us. They didn't come down on Ed Roberts. They came down on the Black Panther Party. And this was one of the reasons, because we connected all these people up to a revolutionary ideology.
There now has been more of a resurgence with the Black Panther Party, or there are some people, like, I know of the person, former Black Panther Speaks, who was part of the original Black Panther Party, that I can also provide a link to his channel if you want to learn more. We sometimes watch his content. I know there also is someone named Paul Birdsong, I believe, who is based mostly in Philly, and that he is instituting a lot of Black Panther ideology. I know it is up for debate, and I'm not the person to decide whether it is a true iteration, or reigniting of the original movement. But he also is focusing on more militant resistance, especially when it comes to the aggression and violence of ICE, not limited to ICE, but also to police, and how there are certain tactics that do prevent these kinds of raids that happen. So, okay. Thank you for sharing that, Linton. I did want to show, as we are now transing, because same, transing into Othello, transitioning, if you didn't catch that. I did want to show this video about Ira Aldridge and the history of Black Othellos, especially how it is a continuation of these previous conversations we've been having, especially when we are watching Miles Greer talk about this, who is an academic at CUNY in New York City. And he studies Othello. He has recently written a book on Othello, and how Black actors largely have lended more humanity and depth to the character of Othello than how the character is written. And that this is much more of a credit to them and their talents than it is to Shakespeare. And this is why it's necessary to continue to decolonize any sort of art. But as we are reading Shakespeare, including decolonizing Shakespeare's art, because there are many things that are deeply problematic, harmful in continuing many tropes, especially as we are engaging in Othello, talking about the colorism that exists there, especially the highly racialized language that he has referred to in, and how he is not mentioned by name a lot of the time. This is indicative of having darker skin, but also being Muslim, also being from Turkey, and how there are all of these elements of marginalization that Othello experiences, but he also is a man. And so there are these very like toxic ideas of what it means to be masculine in the play, and how we were hearing from Kimberly Crenshaw this idea of Black men historically being viewed as hyper masculinized, which stems from colonization and chattel slavery to justify these oppressive conditions and to justify the like violent domination in its current forms. So this is something that is very present in Othello. So I did want to show this. Yes, I should refresh this so that it doesn't shit out on me as it has been doing. Ira Aldridge, and this is by Black Legacy Files. I'll also share. This channel. Okay.
Century, when the theater world was dominated by rigid traditions, one man broke through barriers, defying prejudice and rewriting history. Ira Aldridge wasn't just a groundbreaking actor. He was a trailblazer who redefined what it meant to be Othello. He was born on July 24, 1807, in New York City to freed Black parents who had moved north in search of opportunity and freedom. His father, a preacher, and his mother, a dedicated homemaker, instilled in him the values of hard work and education. Young Ira attended the African Free School, an institution established to provide Black children with a quality education in a time of widespread segregation. There, he rubbed shoulders with some of the most brilliant Black minds of his generation, classmates like James McCune Smith, the first African American to earn a medical degree, and abolitionists Alexander Crummell and Henry Highland Garnet. Together, they formed a circle of intellect and ambition that would help shape the future of civil rights in America. But while many of his friends pursued the path of activism and scholarship, Aldridge followed a different dream, a dream of the stage. It was a dream that would take him far from his hometown, across the Atlantic, where he would become one of the most important Black actors in history. This is the story of Ira Aldridge and the Black Othellos who followed in his footsteps.
Hello, Bounce House. Welcome. So this video, I mean, it does seem to be coming more from like an academic perspective, the whole channel, Black Legacy Files. So there is this element of kind of an idea of like buying into the system for notoriety. Not as much like class consciousness within this channel. It doesn't mean it's completely absent, but I just want to highlight that. But that's also not to diminish the accomplishments of people. I just made it in to beat a torrential downpour. Wow. Glad you made it. That is a huge relief, I'm sure.
Ira Aldridge's first steps onto the stage came with the African Company, the first known Black theater troupe in America, managed by the charismatic and talented James Hewlett.
Yeah, glad that you're safe.
Established in New York City in 1821, the African company staged popular Shakespearean plays and other productions, drawing mixed-race audiences and creating a cultural hub for Black artistic expression.
So this inherently was segregated, just calling this out, of like the need to even create a separate company was because of segregation in the arts. But of course, like in many art forms, especially with people of color, but particularly Black people and indigenous people in the world, where art is then created and it draws in, created by people, and it draws in a larger audience where people want to participate while also not addressing the larger oppressive systems that even force the art to be created in a particular way, in a particular area, and then often is co-opted, lifted, and capitalized on. This is a continuation of the oppressive systems that exist.
Aldrich began as a teenager,
Watching the
learning
Rain
the
with My
craft by
Cats.
watching
Oh,
Hewlett
that's so
perform as
cozy.
Othello and taking on smaller roles himself. However, success brought attention and trouble. Competitors, threatened by the African company's growing popularity, pressured authorities to shut it down. The theater was frequently harassed, and critics like Mordecai Manuel Noah used their influence to attack it in the press, labeling it a nuisance and mocking its actors. Despite their talent, the company could not withstand the relentless prejudice, and it was forced to close its doors. Yet Aldrich's passion for the stage had been ignited. One of his earliest known performances, in the role of Rolla in Pizarro, gave him a taste of the power of dramatic storytelling. Disillusioned by the
I don't know if I would say like they could not withstand it, but rather like the imbalanced powers that existed were doing what they do in forcing people to stop making their art, especially when people are gaining more traction and power in their own right, and how this is viewed as threatening to the status quo.
persistent racism and limited opportunities for Black performers in New York, Ira Aldridge made a life-changing decision to leave America behind. In 1824, he set sail for Liverpool, England, a city at the heart of Britain's maritime trade and a gateway to new possibilities. His journey came at a time when the British Empire was grappling with the abolition of slavery, a movement that gained momentum with the passage of the Slave Trade Act in 1807 and would culminate in the abolition of slavery itself
is crazy.
in 1833.
Talk
England's
about a
more
white
progressive
savior
climate,
complex.
at least compared to the United States, offered a glimmer of hope for a young Black artist. Settling in London, Aldridge joined the company of the Royal Coburg Theatre, where he first appeared in The Slave by Thomas Morton, portraying the African Prince Fulani, a role that mirrored his own story of resilience and liberation. But it was on October 10th, 1825, that his destiny truly took shape. At just 18 years old, Aldridge made his historic debut as Othello, stepping into Shakespeare's tragic masterpiece with a passion and depth that would astonish audiences. This groundbreaking performance marked the beginning of a career that would transform the theater world and forever redefine what it meant to play the Moor of Venice.
Heads touch heaven. It was my hint to speak, and such was the process. And of the cannibals that each other eat, the anthropophagi.
So this is James Earl Jones, who is giving this monologue by Othello that was in the previous scene that we read. When did this come out? Why does the voice kind of sound like AI at times? Anyway, not to, like, apologies to this person if they are not AI, but...
Men whose heads do grow beneath their shoulders.
One of the enduring debates surrounding Shakespeare's Othello is the question of the Moor's ethnicity. Who did Shakespeare imagine when he created this tragic character of love, jealousy, and betrayal? The term Moor in Elizabethan England generally referred to Muslims from North Africa, though it was also used more broadly to describe people of African, Arab, or Berber descent. The origins of Othello can be traced back to a short story by Italian writer Cinthio, titled Un Capitano Moro, translated a Moorish captain, which served as the primary source for Shakespeare's play. In Cinthio's tale, the Moor's specific ethnicity remains ambiguous, but Shakespeare's version offers richer detail. Many scholars believe that Abd el-Wahd ben Masoud, a Moroccan ambassador who visited London in 1600, may have served as inspiration for Othello's appearance. His striking portraits, showing a dark complexion, turban, and elaborate robes, would have captured the imagination of Londoners, including the bard himself.
Okay. So we are seeing creating a monolith of people of color, especially people with melanin in their skin, and how there is this Orientalism as well that exists in saying, okay, so everyone from the African continent, anyone from the area of the Middle East in general, that like everyone is the same, everyone wears turbans. And this is seen within the text of Shakespeare, of the way people are just erased, especially when it comes to Muslim identity, in addition to the overt racism itself, and constantly referring to Othello's skin color in relation to sin. This is white supremacist in nature, clearly colonial in nature, also used to justify the Christian colonization, specifically of this, these ideas of purity and having proximity to whiteness that are very present in the Bible.
Likely influence was Leo Africanus, a Moorish diplomat and scholar whose writings on Africa were widely read in Shakespeare's time. His vivid descriptions of African peoples and cultures could have shaped the tragic hero's complex identity, a man of dignity, honor, and vulnerability, yet marked by his outsider status in Venetian society. When Othello first graced the stage around 1604, it was the renowned actor Richard Burbage, one of Shakespeare's closest collaborators, who played the Moor. Though Burbage's portrayal...
Okay, also in this, I don't know about this video, to be honest with you. Also saying like, oh, he's being portrayed with dignity, or he has dignity. It's like, okay, all human beings have dignity, but I think this is in reference to class specifically, of saying like, oh, you are like a dignitary, of having it be associated with status, which is associated with class, rather than just humanity in general.
Was undoubtedly captivating. He, like all actors of the era, would have performed in blackface. Shakespeare's portrayal of Othello as a noble, tragic figure, however...
Okay. I think I'm gonna stop this here. What the fuck? To be like, undoubtedly, Burbage. Saying that Burbage, like, undoubtedly, that would have been a great performance. Why does this feel like a psyop? Does this feel like a psyop? I'm gonna do more research on this channel. The meaning of dignity has probably changed quite a bit over the years. Yeah, that is true. Questionable. Yeah, I'm going to be doing more research on this. Apologies, everyone. Upon hearing, I was listening to the first few minutes to see if it was decent, and I was like, okay, we're talking about Ira Aldridge, his career mostly, but I'm very skeptical of this. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Sadly, there is a lot that is suppressed within algorithms, just of, you know, any people from marginalized communities, but especially when it comes to hearing from people who are from these marginalized communities creating content in their own voices, which sounds like an AI voice. Okay. So, shall we get into Othello? Put my gloves back on because I'm extra. I have opera gloves. Okay. So, we are starting Act 2. And here we are being introduced to some new people. Thing with Shakespeare, there are so many men. And, I mean, clearly, but I keep forgetting whose voices are whose. There's a large cast in this. So we'll see if I remember. This is always the case. Pen secured. Yes. Put your applause for you. Amazing. Yeah, any sort of art is welcome. Okay. Enter Montano, governor of Cyprus, and 2 other gentlemen. So, we'll see what their voices are like. Ooh. Thank you. I'm a theater kid. The queer theater kids, we love the drama. Okay, I'll stop. And also practical. Dramatic, sassy, practical. Okay, Montano. What do I want his voice to be? From the Cape can you discern at sea? He's just nasally, I guess. First gentleman. Nothing at all. It is a high wrought flood. Meaning very rough sea. I cannot twixt the heaven and the main. Descry a sail, meaning do you see a sail? Methinks the wind has spoken aloud at land. A further blast ne'er shook our battlements. It ha ruffianed so upon the sea, meaning like it raged upon the sea. What ribs of oak, when mountains melt on them, can hold the Mortees? What shall we hear of this? Okay, so we have a footnote after Mortees. What ship with ribs of oak can hold its joints, meaning Mortees, together when mountains of water pour on it? So also having this, like, it's talking about ships, like the actual parts of a ship, but it's also being like symbolic of a play, which is foreshadowing. A play, a body, a human body. Jesus. Okay. Second gentleman. A segregation of the Turkish fleet. For do but stand upon the foaming shore. The chidden billow seems to pelt the clouds. Footnote. The surging ocean, rebuked by the wind, is repulsed by the land. The wind-shaked surge with high and monstrous mane seems to cast water on the burning bear and quench the guards of the ever-fixed pole. Another footnote. The constellation Ursa Minor, meaning the bear, guards probably 2 stars in the constellation that point in a line to the pole star, also in Ursa Minor. Because Ursa Minor looks like a bear. I never did like the molestation view, to see such a tumult, of the achafed flood. Montano. If that the Turkish fleet be not ensheltered and embayed, they are drowned. It is impossible to bear it out. Enter a third gentleman. Okay. News, lads! Our wars are done! The desperate tempest hath surpassed... I don't know. I guess that's the choice. A desperate tempest hath so banged the Turks. Banged the Turks. Shakespearean for banged the Turks, meaning beat the Turks. That their designment halts. A noble ship of Venice hath seen a grievous wrack and sufferance on most part of their fleet. How, is it true? The ship is here put in, a Veronessa. Okay, another footnote. Meaning unclear. Okay, that's helpful. Originally from Verona, though now used by the Venetians, a cutter possibly meant to modify, not ship, but Cassio, although he is Florentine. Okay, that footnote is extremely opaque. That was not helpful at all, in my mind. They're just saying it's from Verona.
Michael Cassio, lieutenant to the warlike Moor Othello, is come on shore, the Moor himself at sea, and is in full commission here for Cyprus.
I'm glad on it. 'Tis a worthy governor.
That's Montano.
But this same Cassio, though he speak of comfort, touching the Turkish loss, yet he looks sadly, and prays the Moor be safe, for they were parted with foul and violent tempest.
Montano.
Pray heavens he be, for I have served him, and the man commands like a full soldier. Let's to the seaside. Ho! As well to see the vessel that's come in, as to throw out our eyes for brave Othello.
Meaning look out for brave Othello. Not like throwing out the eyes. I think that's implied.
Even till we make the main and the aerial blue in indistinct regard.
Another footnote. Until we can distinguish sea from sky.
Come, let's do so, for every minute is expectancy of more arrivants.
Enter Cassio. Oh boy, what was his voice? Thinks you the valiant of this warlike isle, so that approve the more. Oh, let the heavens give him defense against the elements, for I have lost him on a dangerous sea.
Is he well shipped?
His bark is stoutly timbered, and his pilot a very expert and approved allowance, meaning no nobility. Therefore my hopes not surfeited to death, meaning not excessive, stand in bold cure. Voices within.
A sail!
A sail! A sail! Cassio. What noise? A gentleman.
The town is empty! On the brow of the sea stand ranks of people, and they cry a sail!
Automated. Sorry about that. So many bougie MFers being bougie and iambic and shit. I know, I need to adjust some of the automod settings because, like, what they say is profanity I'm not offended by, but... Oh boy, let's see if I can turn this page with these gloves. I take those as a symbol of pride.
My hopes do shape him for the governor. A shot.
A gentleman.
They do discharge their shot of courtesy, our friends at last. I pray you, sir, go forth, and give us truth who 'tis that is arrived. I shall.
But, good lieutenant, is your general wived?
Okay, that's what he cares about. He's not like, oh, are people, like, is he safe? Like, we're seeing a sail, but, like, are people okay? He's just like, does he have a wife?
Cassio, most fortunately, he hath achieved a maid, that paragon's description and wild fame, one that excels the quirks of blazoning pens, and in the essential vesture of creation does tire the engineer.
Meaning, like, her beauty and grace, like, exceeds anything that people could imagine. Okay, yeah, this is what the footnote says. Whose natural beauty exhausts the poet's capacity to invent praise. Enter gentleman. Once again.
How now? Who is put in? 'Tis one Iago, ensign to the general.
He's had most favorable and happy speed, tempests themselves, high seas, and howling winds. That's what you've been experiencing, Bounce House. Y'all need a wife. Like, most importantly, does he have a wife? Because then we know that he has solidified his place in patriarchy.
The guttered rocks and congregated sands, traitors and steeped to enclog the guiltless keel, as having sense of beauty do omit, their mortal natures letting go safely by the divine Desdemona.
What is she?
What is she? Nice. Just turning her into an object. Was a quick bluster. It seems a little more chilled down outside.
the tempests have yielded. I'm glad to hear. She that I spake of, our great captain's captain, left in the conduct of the bold Iago, whose footing here anticipates our thoughts, a Senite speed. Footnote. Whose arrival predates our expectations by a week. Great Jove, Othello guard, and swell his sail with thine own powerful breath, that he may bless this bay with his tall ship, make love's quick pants in Desdemona's arms. Jesus. I mean, Shakespeare is dirty, so... Oh. Make love's quick pants. That's very evocative, very erotic. Give renewed fire to our extincted spirits, and bring all Cyprus comfort. So the thing that's so funny is, like, people are allowed to talk about being sexual as much as they want, like, in theory. But then, especially in this particular society where, like, being overly sexual, even within a marriage, that it is viewed as being, like, too much, that it's immoral. So it's, like, only in theory, and if only other people are talking about it. Oh, behold, the riches of the ship is come on shore. The men of Cyprus, let her have your knees. Meaning, kneel. Montano and the gentleman make curtsy to Desdemona. Hail to thee, lady, and the grace of heaven before, behind thee, and on every hand, and wheel thee round. So meaning, like, everyone surround her and kneel. Also, I just want to have my own insertion. The fact that everyone seems to be deceived by Iago, maybe this is like the Scorpio in me speaking, but I'm like, really? No one saw through his tactics? No one, like, was able to look him in the eyes and be like, okay, that's a snake? Because clearly he is. Again, academics would probably say, like, oh, that shows how clever and smart and evil he is. It's like, it's not, you don't have to be smart to be evil. Like, it doesn't take intelligence to be cruel. It's easy to be cruel. I thank you, valiant Cassio. Desdemona. What tidings can you tell me of my lord? He's not arrived, nor know I aught, but that he's well, and will be shortly here. Oh, but I fear, how lost you company? The great contention of the sea and skies parted our fellowship. Voices within. A sail! A sail! But hark! A sail! A shot in the distance. This is a cue, like a stage cue that's written in. A gentleman. They give their greeting to the citadel. This likewise is a friend. Cassio. See for the news. Exit gentleman. Good ensign, you are welcome. Meaning, any time it's an ensign, it's Iago, and he doesn't like that. So calling him by his title just pisses him off, which also good. Who gives a fuck about that guy? Welcome, mistress, that I extend my manners. Oh, wait, nope. Welcome, mistress. Let it not gall your patience, good Iago. So he's already saying that he's mad. That I extend my manners. 'Tis my breeding that gives me this bold show of courtesy. Sir, would she give you so much of her lips as of her tongue she oft bestows on me, you would have enough. That's my Iago voice. He's like, oh, Desdemona kisses me all the time, with tongue. It's like, ew, shut up. Desdemona. Alas, she has no speech. Footnote. Perhaps, alas, the accused scolding chatterbox is not even rising to her own defense, both a defense of Emilia and a prod for her to speak. Oh, wait, are they talking? Oh, they're talking about his wife. So Iago's saying, like, oh, she gives me so many kisses. Which also, this is why I keep saying we need to have a queer reading of Othello, that Iago seems to be having, like, a lot of internalized homophobia, where he's constantly having anxiety about his own, like, sexual performance, seems to have the hots for Othello and is mad at it all and is trying to just destroy everyone. Sounds like a lot of the fascist closet cases that are in power right now, where they want to be as evil as they want, discriminatory as they want, and then on the weekends, we know who they call. Hello. Iago, in faith too much, I find it still when I has leave to sleep. Mary, before your ladyship I grant, she puts her tongue a little in her heart, and chides with thinking. Keeps her critical thoughts to herself. Oh, like a good woman in patriarchy. She doesn't speak. Amelia, you had little cause to say so. So she is pushing back against Iago, which is good to see. Come on, you are pictures out the door. Bells in your parlors, wildcats in your kitchens. Okay. It's like, oh, when people can't see you and you're in the kitchen where you're supposed to be. Like, okay. The parrot's like for Iago. Saints in your injuries, devils being offended, players in your housewifery, and hussies in your beds. Same, I mean. But he's also being condescending. Footnote. Iago shifts from Amelia to women generally in this speech. Yeah, because he is just evil all the way around. He's a supremacist. He's a white supremacist. He also is like angry at the world and is taking it out on everyone around him. Pictures, meaning models of silent propriety. Bells, meaning noisy. Kitchens, so like going through all of these lines, this footnote is. Kitchens, perhaps domestic affairs, generally rather than a specific room. Players in your housewifery, meaning deceptive in managing household expenses. Okay. And hussies, wanton, perhaps businesslike or sparing of sexual favors. So meaning he has a double meaning here that's like accusing women of being too sexual and then also being angry at them of not being sexual enough. Iago, maybe you wouldn't be so mad and evil if you just chill out about your sexuality. Yeah. How about, like, maybe suck a dick or two in your time? Like, relax. Relax. It's okay. It's okay. Even though it's the end of Pride, we will accept you. Just stop being an ass. Desdemona. Oh, fie upon thee, slanderer. Yeah, good for her for saying that. Nay, it is true, or else I am a Turk. Ew. Okay, racist, Islamophobic for him saying that. Also insulting her husband. You rise to play and go to bed to work. Ew. He is so gross. You rise to play of like, you don't do any work. It's like maybe they would. Maybe if you allowed women to hold positions in society, they would be like working in the way that you view as work. And also, he's saying you are going to work in bed, meaning that's like what your work is to your husband. This is Amelia's next line. You shall not write my praise, meaning that she doesn't do either of these things. That she doesn't play around in the way he wants, and also is not like working for him in bed. And so this is making him mad, which is good to see. Iago. No, let me not. Desdemona. What wouldst write of me, if thou shouldst praise me? Iago. O gentle lady, do not put me to it, for I am nothing if not critical. Desdemona. Come on, essay, meaning try. There's one gone to the harbor. Ay, madam. I am not merry, but I do beguile, meaning disguise, the thing I am by seeming otherwise. She is saying she's worried for Othello and is trying to keep up like this banter to distract herself. Come, how wouldst thou praise me? Iago. I am about it, but indeed my invention comes from my pate, as birdlime does from frieze, meaning coarse wool cloth. We have a footnote here. Birdlime means sticky substance used to trap small birds. I wonder as well if, like this line in particular inspired the Disney movie Aladdin to be like, oh, he should be a parrot. He should be a bird. It plucks out brains, and above all, but my muse labors, and thus she is delivered. Meaning my muse is in childbirth, and thus she is delivered. If she be fair and wise, fairness and wit, the one's for use, and the other useth it. Meaning intelligence makes use of beauty. So he's essentially saying like, oh, I'm too smart with this. You wouldn't understand. He's just like putting it off. That's like, so you weren't really that smart to be coming up with these things on the spot, you dumbass. Well praised. How if she be black and witty? Okay, also speaking in racialized language here. Iago, if she be black and therefore have a wit, she'll find a white that shall her blackness fit. So, footnote here, dark-haired or dark-complexioned, white meaning fair-skinned. So, again, speaking in racialized language here, they both are. And, it's like you would think Desdemona being married to Othello, who is largely believed to be black, he is racialized, so a black or brown man, a Muslim, that like she would not be speaking in such a racist manner. But one, this does not mean that if people have a partner who is a person of color that they cannot be racist. Like any connection to people of color that they cannot be racist. And also that her character, like this is appealing to Shakespeare's audience of like, ha ha ha, this is all funny. This is not funny. Worse and worse. Emilia. How if fair and foolish? Iago. She never yet was foolish that was fair. Ew. So saying like, if you have proximity to whiteness, you are not as foolish. For even her folly helped her to an heir. Meaning her foolishness. So again, now he's finally starting to amuse them by speaking in couplets and in riddles, but really, it's not that clever. He is just being racist. Desdemona. These are old fond paradoxes to make fools laugh in the alehouse. She's like, these aren't that clever. Yeah, you think? Yeah, so when Desdemona was saying worse and worse, she was saying like, oh, this is bad. Like, she wasn't calling him out for his racism because she was also engaging in the racism. But she was saying that, like, his skills are poor. Oh, wait. I didn't remember who was speaking. Let's see if I can... Okay, this is still Desdemona. What miserable praise hast thou for her? That's foul and foolish. Iago. There's none so foul and foolish thereunto, but does foul pranks which fair and wise ones do. Desdemona. O heavy ignorance! Thou praisest the worst best. But what praise couldst thou bestow on a deserving woman? Indeed, one that in the authority of her merit did justly put on the vouch of very malice itself, meaning compel the approval of malice itself. Iago. She that was ever fair and never proud, had tongue at will and yet was never loud. So he's like, only, we like clever women, but only when we are wanting to hear from them. Not when she has her own mind and speaks at her own volition. Never lacked gold and yet never went gay. Excuse me? Gay, you say? Lavishly clothed is what that means. But also, Iago, are we talking about gay? Because we need to have a conversation, sweetie. Fled from her wish and yet said, now I may. Footnote, voluntarily withstood temptation even when given the choice. She that being angered, her revenge being nigh, bade her wrong stay and her displeasure fly. She that in wisdom never was so frail to change the cod's head for the salmon's tail. So this is a sexual joke. Anytime you have like a cod, this fish that's mentioned, it usually is in reference to like a cod piece, which is like in the crotch area of the pants that men would wear, like the little flap. That is in their crotch area. Footnote. to make an unworthy exchange, probably also suggesting sexual infidelity. Cod means penis, and tail equals vulva. So, there you go. Very anatomical terms. She that could think and ne'er disclose her mind, see suitors following and not look behind. So this is like kind of reminiscent of, what's that Greek myth of where he goes to the underworld to get her and he looks behind. Wait, or am I mixing the Bible? I think that's it. Where he turns into a pillar of salt. Persephone? Thank you. Which I guess also the Bible takes a lot of things from like Greek mythology anyway. Thank you. Mixing up so many things. But also there are these tropes that lend itself to this kind of imagery, I guess. She was a wight, if ever such wights were. Again. Pillar of salt is Lot's wife. Thank you. Okay, so he's talking about Lot's wife, specifically. But also, Lot's wife, that is like the inverse of the tale of Persephone. Thank you, Bounce House. Thank you for keeping me straight. But not in the hetero way. Okay, so continuing to talk about racialized language, but also with this particular spelling, I'm gonna look this up. Sorry, I know this is like a bit halting, but I do like to have some like context and explanations for some of the language in Shakespeare. Okay, so I was going to say something like this and did not want to get this wrong, so I'm glad my inclinations are somewhat correct, especially if that recent incident of the underworld shit. Okay, a wight, W-I-G-H-T, which is what is written here when saying she was a wight, if ever such wights were. So again, it's a play on words, talking about racialized language, colorism, but also it means a spirit, ghost, or other supernatural being. A person of a specified kind, especially one regarded as unfortunate. So he's also referring to her being white, a Caucasian woman within this white supremacist society, and saying that she is unfortunate to have married a black man, which is just idiotic. But he is foreshadowing what is to come. Desdemona. To do what? Iago. To suckle fools and chronicle small beer. Which means, to breastfeed babies, we know that, and keep track of trivial domestic goods. That is, such perfect virtue suits only a dull, complacent, decidedly ungenteel housewife. So essentially, he's just continuing to say women as wives, they should always be sexually available to their husbands, but they shouldn't be too sexual, otherwise that's unseemly. Desdemona. Oh, most lame and impotent conclusion! Do not learn of him, Emilia, though he be thy husband. How say you, Cassio? Is he not a most profane and liberal counselor? Yeah, liberal indeed. And profane. And this is against the time, especially to be like, don't listen to your husband, Emilia. Cassio. He speaks home, madam. You may relish him more in the soldier than in the scholar. You may relish him more, so like, he's a better soldier than a scholar. And Iago's probably mad at that because he's self-conscious of his physical prowess as well as his sexual prowess. How interesting those two seem to go hand in hand within patriarchy. Iago, aside. He takes her by the palm. Aye, well said. So an aside is him speaking to the audience specifically. Androgynous water. From Wikipedia, when Hades was informed of Zeus's command to return Persephone, he complied with the request, but first he tricked her into eating pomegranate seeds. Hermes was sent to retrieve Persephone, but because she had tasted the food of the underworld, she was obliged to spend a third of each year, the winter months, there, and the remaining part of the year with the gods above. Persephone's story is more about seasons. Yes. Thank you. That is great. Yeah, so it seems like what he was in reference to was much more specific to Lot's wife, which we don't get a name for Lot's wife. Hello. Pomegranate seeds tends to resemble being fertile as well, which does seem to lend itself a little bit to what Iago is talking about, of like saying women really are only good for like their use of being baby factories rather than human beings. But yeah, thank you for that. This is a great clarification. Okay, Iago aside, speaking to the audience. So things are happening while he's like to the audience. He takes her by the palm. Aye, well said. Whisper. With as little a web as this will I ensnare as great a fly as Cassio. I smile upon her. Do. Because he's wanting to make it look like they're having an affair. But really, they're just like, we like Othello. Is he here yet? Even though everyone is speaking about him in racialized terms. I will give thee in thine own courtship. You say true, 'tis so indeed, if such tricks as these strip you out of your lieutenantry, if it had better you had not kissed your 3 fingers so oft. Footnote. Kissing one's own hand was a common courtly gesture from a gentleman to a lady. Yeah, so, like, you can be kissing another's hand, but also to be like, that was gentlemanly. Which now again you are most apt to play the sir in. Very good, well kissed, an excellent curtsy, 'tis so indeed. Yet again your fingers to your lips, would they were clister pipes for your sake. Meaning, enema tubes. Ew. So he constantly is talking about like the digestive system and like bowels and stuff. He just is like very carnal in nature, always thinking about people's bodies, which is also a way to like dehumanize people and to diminish them to like their body parts rather than their minds, because he thinks he is such a superior intellect, but he is not. Trumpets within. The more I know his trumpet. Again, not saying his name. Just talking about his race. Cass. 'Tis truly so. Cassio. Desdemona. Let's meet him and receive him. Cassio. Lo, where he comes! Enter Othello and attendants. Othello to Desdemona. Oh, my fair warrior! So he is speaking about her within, like, masculine terms, but this is him viewing her as more of an equal than what the other characters are viewing her as. Certainly not Iago, how he views his own wife, Emilia. My dear Othello! Othello, it gives me wonder as great as my content to see you here before me. Oh, my soul's joy, if after every tempest come such calms, may the winds blow till they have wakened death, and let the laboring bark climb hills of seas. Bark is a small ship. Olympus high, and duck again as low, as hells from heaven. He's referring to Mount Olympus. If it were now to die, meaning to perish, and also to orgasm, this is something that comes up a lot within old literature, but especially Shakespeare, to say, like, to die a little death, a petit mort, is another term for orgasm. So this will keep happening. And also within Othello,
Because at the time, people were practicing blackface. Blackface was practiced a lot up until most recently, which, honestly has not gone away, as we've seen with Jake Paul and other idiots. But this has a third meaning in the makeup that actors would be playing. So dye as in D-Y-E. "'Twere now to be most happy, for I fear my soul hath her content so absolute, that not another comfort like to this succeeds in unknown fate," meaning will follow in the future. So again, them being like, oh, we love each other and like we want to be like physically intimate with one another. This is very natural and like great. Love that you like each other. I wish Desdemona was not as racist. But this is indicating to the audience like, uh-oh, what if they get to be too sexual even though they're married? Which also is a racist trope, especially at the time, to be like, black men, but especially like men of color, are overly sexualized, and this anxiety about white men and their own sexuality. Iago, this continues. Desdemona, the heavens forbid but that our loves and comforts should increase, even as our days do grow. Othello, amen to that, sweet powers. I cannot speak enough of this content. It stops me here. It is too much of joy. And this, they kiss, and this, the greatest discords be that e'er our hearts shall make. Iago, aside. Oh, you are well tuned now, but I'll set down the pegs that make this music. Anytime there's a side, I'm gonna do this if I'm holding my fan. This is to the audience. Psst, psst, psst. Footnote. I'll untune by loosening the pegs that hold the strings of a musical instrument taut. This would be, like, especially referring to a lute, a string instrument that would be played in court by bards. And Shakespeare was called the bard, which means, like, a storyteller, and also musician. But I'll set down the pegs that make this music, as honest as I am. So, we know he's not honest. Othello. Come, let us to the castle. News, friends, our wars are done. The Turks are drowned. So he's being a traitor against his homeland, so we're calling that out. That would also be endearing to the audience of Shakespeare's time of like, oh, look at this man. He is fighting for us. This white supremacist society against this largely non-white population that is Muslim. Wow. It's like he's being tokenized and constantly used by the people around him. He is a very flattened character. How does my old acquaintance of this isle? Honey, you shall be well desired in Cyprus. I have found great love amongst them. Oh, my sweet, I prattle out of fashion, and I dote in mine own comforts. I prithee, good Iago, go to the bay and disembark my coffers. Bring thou the master to the citadel, meaning the captain, to the citadel. He is a good one, and his worthiness does challenge much respect. Come, Desdemona, once more, well met at Cyprus. Okay, let's see. I think I'm going to have to stop there, but tomorrow we do have a very short a very short scene 2. So tomorrow we'll probably finish this, read scene 2, which is like a paragraph, and then read scene 3. Maybe we'll partly get through scene 3. Whoa, scene 3 is long. Okay. Maybe we'll, finish this tomorrow, scene 2, and if we have time, get into a little bit of scene 3. If not, the next day, Friday, I'll devote more time to scene 3 so that we can get through all of it. Okay, so that is where Othello and Desdemona exit, and then all who is left is Iago and Roderigo to get up to their
assholery and scheming. Anyway, that's the end of that. Thank you all for being here. It was lovely being with you, chatting with you. Thank you for your engagement and words of wisdom, as usual. This is honestly my favorite part of streaming, is being able to spend time with you all. Anyway, shall we do a raid to someone? Yeah, of course. Raid browser. It was wonderful to have you, doll. Protect the dolls. Thank you for joining today. Is there anyone you think we should raid? Can always hop to Zach. Oh, is Zach on right now? Okay, amazing. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Okay. I would say behave. I know that won't stop anyone who won't, but most of you already know Zach. So, anyway, see you later. Bye.